Detectives Tim and Anderson had just been handed the most cryptic mission of their careers. No one at the agency could even tell them where they were heading. All they got was a coded message and a map with only continent names labeled.
"Look closely at the map,"
their handlers said.
"Add a direction to one of these continents, and you will get the name of the country where you're going."
Can you help them to figure it out? It didn't take them long to crack it. The direction was south, and the continent was Africa, because adding south to Africa gave them South Africa. Bingo! Now they are definitely sure where they're supposed to go. Their next set of instructions would come from an informant during the flight, so they boarded and spotted 3 men sitting next to them. Can you tell which one is their guy? Look, this man is holding a suitcase marked with a small emblem from the detective agency. Which, by the way, is the same emblem Tim and Anderson have on their suitcases. This is definitely the informant. They walk over, and he discreetly handed them a slip of paper before slipping back into their seats. The note was supposed to contain the name of their main suspect, but they quickly realized that it was also encoded. Thankfully, Tim remembered an old trick from their agency. Each vowel matched up with a number. That means the letter A corresponds to the number 1. The letter E is 2, I is 3, O is 4, and U is 5. Now it is time to crack the criminal's name. The name is spelled out as Nico Nacho. Of all names, Nico Nacho, Anderson chuckled, but they knew better than to underestimate him. Nico was notorious in the underworld for his crafty disguises and dangerous alliances. When they touched down in South Africa, they found out that Nico ran a restaurant as his cover. A taxi driver agreed to take them there, but only if they guessed which of the taxis belonged to him. Then, he handed him this encoded message. Can you tell which taxi the detectives should choose among these 3? These strange symbols are mirrored numbers. If we cut the upside-down triangle, we get the number 7. Cut the 8, and we get the number 3. Do the same with this weird heart-shaped symbol, and it becomes number 2. So, the correct taxi is the one that has the number 7327 on the license plate. Tim and Anderson finally arrive at their destination, but there are 3 restaurants on this street, and each one has really bizarre names. The restaurant signs read Okan, Atsap, and Silrag. Can you guess which one belongs to Nico's criminal network? A quick flip of the words told them everything they needed to know. Reading it backwards, Silrag turns into garlic. Atsap is pasta. And Okan spells nacho. Wow, just like Nico's last name. Yep, this is definitely the place. They walked into the shady restaurant, but to be honest, it looked pretty ordinary. So they asked the manager to check the security camera footage from the night before, after the place closed. The manager looked nervous, but she agreed. Then she showed them the footage from 2 different cameras that captured the empty restaurant from different angles. Then, suddenly, Tim shouted, "Wait! Pause here! Play it again!" Can you figure out why he decided to rewind the footage? Both cameras had the same timestamp, but one showed the piñata hanging from the ceiling moving, while in the other one, the piñata didn't move at all. A possible explanation is that the criminals erased some footage, so the video looks like it's paused. And look over there. In this footage, they can see a sketchy door. Something is definitely up with that. Maybe they wanted to hide who went in there. Tim and Anderson get inside that door and spot a staircase leading to the basement. Heading down, the stairs seemed to stretch endlessly. When they reached the bottom, they were confronted by a chilling sight. 3 cages, each containing a captive surrounded by dangerous animals. So the 2 of them got a message on their phones that said, "You can save only one. There is no time to save them all." In the first cage, a person stood stock still as crocodiles swam beneath, their beady eyes watching, waiting. In the second, tigers paced and growled, tense and ready to pounce. In the third, a network of snakes slithered around the feet of the captive, coiling and hissing. Tim and Anderson had to think fast. Who will they save first? Let's see. Crocodiles are not as aggressive unless provoked. The snakes are likely venomous, but as long as the person stayed calm, they'd have a little time. The tigers, though, they were actively circling, clearly hostile, and seconds away from attacking. They had to make a call, and fast. In a split second, they went for the person surrounded by tigers, pulling them free just as one of the tigers roared. But they got the person out in time. Phew! Sorry, but the other victims will have to wait a bit longer to be rescued, because when they looked back, the detectives saw a hooded suspect sneaking out of the basement. Tim and Anderson took off running after him. They chased him hard until the suspect reached a dead end. The detectives shouted, "Stop right there!" But then they realized they were actually the ones who were in danger. But how? Take a look at the floor. There are only 2 detectives, but there are 4 shadows on the ground. That means there are 2 people right behind them. Tim and Anderson froze in fear, but they didn't have time to think. Suddenly, a group of tough guys surrounded them. "You think you can just come in here and mess with Nico's operation?" one of them asked. And then he said that Nico Nacho would see them, but only if they could solve a riddle to prove their worth. He handed them a note that said, "I belong to the month of December, and not to any other month. I am not a holiday. What am I?" What the criminals didn't know was that Tim was a pro at riddles. He immediately realized the answer was the letter D, since no other month has that letter. They finally made it to Nico Nacho's mansion, but their problems were far from over. There was a really angry dog at the door growling at them. The detectives knew they were in deep trouble. Anderson thought out loud. "What should we do? Run for it, raise our hands, or grab a bottle of water?" Now tell us in the comments, what would you do? Got any advice for them? Running or raising their hands could freak the dog out even more, making things way more dangerous. The smart move is to grab the water bottle and throw it far away so the dog goes after it, giving them a chance to sneak into the house. And that is exactly what they do. As soon as they step into the main room, Tim and Anderson take in the decor, glance at each other, and realize something feels really off. What did they notice? See that picture on the wall? That is not Nico Nacho. That guy is the informant. Yep, the one who was on the plane with them. But wait, that makes zero sense. Can someone please tell them what is going on? Suddenly, a bunch of their fellow detectives burst into the room, clapping and congratulating them. This time, they weren't after Nico Nacho. Turns out, Tim and Anderson's super-secret mission was actually a huge prank by the detective agency, because they were celebrating their 100th case. They wanted to mark the occasion with some special puzzles, riddles, and of course, a bunch of very professional actors. Ava got into a serious accident during the weekend. She got a concussion and broke her leg. Still, the very next day, one of her friends saw her riding a bicycle in the park, and she looked fine. How is that possible? Look, the girl who got into the car accident has a tattoo on her ankle. The girl on the bike doesn't. The girl who was riding the bike was Ava's twin sister, Malva. A doctor rushed into the emergency room and saw there were 2 patients waiting for urgent treatment. The man on the left was a tech millionaire, and the lady on the right was a grandmother to 5 children. He needed to think fast who he would save. Who should he choose? He should choose the grandmother. The man on the left has a phone next to him. He could call someone else for help. 3 scientists went to research in the Amazon forest. Bianca had some trouble with the harsh weather, but felt it was worth it in the end. Pablo had a great time photographing the wildlife for his social media page, and Helena got to study a rare species of carnivorous plant. On the last day of their trip, passing through airport security, one of them got caught trying to take something in their backpack. Take a look at the picture. Can you tell who it was? Well, it's illegal to take seeds and plants with you, and Helena had a carnivorous plant in her backpack. Yikes! Mia went to Rome for summer vacation. She was wandering through the streets when she saw an artist's easel was knocked over. He said he had stepped away for 1 second and the tragedy happened. Mia decided to help him solve the case and interviewed a few people. Marco said that he'd been taking photos nearby. Harry said he'd been juggling for a big crowd a few meters away. Josie said that she'd come by just to buy a painting from the artist. And Leo said he had been enjoying gelato at a cafe nearby. Can you help Mia figure this one out? Well, look at Harry's backpack. There are some art supplies sticking out of it. He must have created a distraction to steal it. Yikes! Barbara invited her colleague Sabrina for lunch at her place. Sabrina was surprised she thought Barbara didn't like her. But Barbara went all in for their lunch. She even cooked delicious tuna. She split the fish in half, and each of the ladies ate their portion. A few hours after lunch, Sabrina ended up in the hospital with severe food poisoning. After a thorough investigation, the police popped over at Barbara's house and arrested her. But how was this possible? Take a look at the knife Barbara used to prepare the meal. It had a bit of poison on one side. Certainly the side that she gave Barbara to eat. Oh my. You meet a friend for coffee, and she says she will only spill the tea on her latest secret if you can guess her riddle. She says, 5 costs $25, 25 costs $50. If you buy 255, you pay $75. What is it that you're buying, and how much does one item cost? You're buying door numbers, and each number costs $25. It took a decade for Professor Evans' archaeological mission to find a priceless artifact. The professor stored it safely in a vault. The team celebrated the win with a bonfire and went to sleep. The next morning, the artifact was gone. Professor Evans decided to investigate the robbery herself. Jack said he spent the last 2 hours cataloging the pottery they had found earlier. Olivia claimed she spent the last few hours in the rest area getting some sleep. Mark mentioned he'd been repairing the digger all morning. Professor Evans immediately figured out who took the artifact. Can you figure it out too? It was Mark. He claimed he spent the entire morning fixing the digger. But take a look at his hands. They should be dirty from the repairs. A car crashed into a restaurant window and drove straight inside. The owner was horrified and called the cops to investigate. There were 2 main suspects, Julia and Bernard. Each of them claims it was the other person who is the culprit. Take a look at the image. Can you figure out who's lying? It's Julia. If you pay attention to the tire tracks, you'll see that they're the same pattern as Julia's tires. She's the one who did it. Take a look at this picture. Can you guess who is more reckless? Let's see. On the first pic, we see a little kid on the beach playing near the water. His super muscular dad is in the background talking to a couple of women. In the second pic, the little kid is playing catch with a not-so-friendly dog. But hey, his dad in the background is paying close attention. It's safe to say the dad on the first pic is more reckless. You are in Greece, exploring some of the country's ancient ruins. You get lost from your group and find the entrance to a hidden cave. You come across a mysterious chamber with 4 massive doors, each with a unique symbol. Beside it, there is an ancient scroll. When you open it, you find a message that tells you to trust that your mind knows the fleeting nature of time. The first door carries the symbol of a shield. The second door has a crown. The third door features a pair of wings, and the fourth door has an hourglass on it. Which door will lead you to the treasure? The fourth door, the one with the hourglass. The clue was in the last phrase, the fleeting nature of time. It's the hourglass. You walk into a diner and there are 2 very suspicious clients indoors. And one of them is actually a criminal. Who is it? Let's have a look. The first guy looks suspicious, especially since he's holding a defensive device. The second girl looks more innocent. She's just sitting holding a knife and cutting her salad with it. But hey, she's the guilty one. That huge knife is too big for cutting a salad, and it's got a red stain on it. Sarah was invited for a brunch with her new colleagues from work. She recently started working at a tech company. She arrived at the restaurant but didn't see any of her colleagues. Instead, she saw a weird-looking robot. How could she tell that it was really a robot? I know it looks like a person, but hey, look at her wrists. She has USB entrances on both of them. It must have been one of the pranks her colleagues decided to play on her. Maeve quit her job and decided to travel the world. Her first destination was Paris. She didn't know anything or anyone over there, so she arrived and looked for the first hostel she could find. But, oh no, she really shouldn't go inside this place. Take a look at the image. Can you figure out why? This hostel is haunted. There's the shadow of a ghost on the top window. I definitely wouldn't go in. One late summer evening, a thief broke into a renowned artist's studio and stole a rare painting. He didn't manage to get too far though, because a security patrol passed by while he was escaping. The thief stashed the painting under a thick bush and hid behind a nearby wall. The artist was quick to notice they had been stolen and called Detective Summer for help. The detective soon gathered two suspects. Take a look at the picture. Which guy did it? If you crawl through a bush with bare arms, they will most likely get scratched. Take a look at that second guy's arms. They're covered in scratches. He must be the culprit.
A plane bound for Central America crashed in the heart of the jungle. Of all the passengers on board the aircraft, only 8 individuals managed to survive. The group wasted no time in locating food. However, they struggled to find a clean water source. The sole source they came across appeared incredibly suspicious. Consuming that water posed a significant risk, yet nobody was willing to perish due to dehydration. Consequently, the group faced a tough decision. Their only escape route hinged on selecting a member to test the water from the spring. Yet, if it were contaminated, the chosen person would meet an immediate demise. The group had a huge dilemma on their hands. Who were they supposed to sacrifice? They gathered around a fire, and each one of them had the opportunity to share a little bit about themselves. The first person was Peter, a 37-year-old magician. Peter was a lively man who traveled the world as a successful magician. He said he could use his skills to keep the group's spirits high. The second person was Max, a 28-year-old programmer. Before the crash, he was busy developing software that could change the world. The survivors don't think highly of him though. He's a bit of a diva. But he argued that his skills and knowledge would be needed by society, since the secret project he was working on could save the lives of millions of people. Then there was Jude, an experienced and honored doctor. Jude had volunteered for many charity organizations and saved countless lives. He said that if the group wanted to have a chance of survival, they needed to spare his life. Next, Marina, a 52-year-old cook, told her story. She said she had recently divorced her husband and was starting to make a life for herself. Up until then, she was a stay-at-home mom with no purpose in life. But after her divorce, she decided to follow her dreams and enrolled at a fancy culinary school. She said she could make delicious food for everyone, even with so few resources available. Even though Mary was wearing expensive clothes, she said she was all for a greener planet. She was a 22-year-old girl straight out of college. She was on her way to Costa Rica for a spiritual retreat when the plane crashed. She said she was an expert at nonviolent communication and could help the group keep harmony through these stressful times. Sean was anxious when he started speaking. He was a former convict and was afraid that the group would immediately turn on him when he told a story. Yet he was very honest when he said that he had learned his lesson in prison and was committed to making the world a better place from then on. Then Daniel, a famous 30-year-old athlete, started speaking. Despite his youthful age, Daniel had already won multiple medals. He was extremely fit and could help the group get through those extremely harsh conditions by building shelters or even protecting them from wild animals. The last member of the group was Tom, a 15-year-old boy. Unfortunately, he lost his parents during the crash and was left alone. He had no special abilities to help the group. Jude, as the oldest person in the group, took the lead in the decision-making process. He asked everyone to answer the question, "Why should you not be sacrificed?" The first person to speak out was Peter, the magician. He said, "I make people laugh and awe at the magic of life. Through me, magic keeps on living. I can't be sacrificed." Then programmer Max said, "I'm going to change the world with my secret project. You really have no idea about the revolutionary idea I'm working on. If you sacrifice me, you'll deeply regret it." Dr. Jude said, "I'm pretty old and I've lived a good life, but I'm one of the few people here who knows how to save lives. What would you do if you sacrificed me?" Marina the cook said, "Guys, I just recently found my purpose in life again after the divorce. I have so much to do in this world. There are so many opportunities ahead of me." Mary, the woo-woo girl, said, "There are opportunities ahead of me too. I just finished college. Who knows? I could become a great spiritual leader and change the world. You'll regret it if you get rid of me." Ex-convict Sean said, "I understand if you choose me to drink the water. I just want to say that I'm a changed man and that I will do everything in my power to make it up to society if I get out of here alive. I can be an inspiration to many people." Athlete Daniel said, "I think there's still a good number of medals to win, but hey, I'm willing to take one for the group if I need to. I'm pretty strong and who knows, maybe the water won't harm me." Lastly, Tom the teenager spoke. He said, "I'm pretty scared of drinking the water. Please don't make me do it. I swear I'll grow up to be a good person." After listening to everyone, the group needed to vote. But before voting against anyone, they were supposed to think about each person's usefulness for the group and society in general. As a magician, Peter can contribute to the preservation and development of cultural traditions and the entertainment industry. Although his skills are not critical for physical survival, they might be important for the psychological health of the group. Max has good analytical and problem-solving skills, but in a survival environment, his technical skills were not so in demand. Plus, his secret project could easily be some AI technology that could rule over humanity. Jude is one of the most valuable members of the group because of his ability to provide medical support. Marina, the cook, can be important for maintaining health and morale through nutrition, but not critically important for survival. Mary's role is less important. She's more of an idealist than a problem solver, so her direct impact on group survival is extremely limited. Sean, the ex-convict, has acquired skills in difficult conditions and situations which can be extremely useful in survival. Also, his potential rehabilitation story may inspire social change and reform. Daniel, the athlete, is important. His physical abilities are important to the group, and he can serve as an inspiration to others. Tom, the kid, is not able to participate equally in survival tasks, and who knows, he may grow up to be a great or terrible person. It's 50-50, and there are no guarantees he will either be useful or harmful to society in the future. When Dr. Jude received all the votes, he was appalled by the decision of the group. He expected that most people would vote to sacrifice Max, the programmer, but no. They chose to sacrifice Tom, the young kid, and took him to the water spring. He drank the water to see if it was safe, and just a few hours later, Tom passed away. The group was very shaken by the kid's early demise, and they were also desperate, because without water, they would all have the same fate before rescuers had time to find them in the middle of the jungle. That's when programmer Max had an idea. "I think I can design a primitive filter to purify the water," he said. Max quickly described his plan to create a device that could use coal, sand, and rocks to filter pollutants from the water. The group listened to him carefully, and the decision to try to create a filter seemed to them to be the best way out of the situation. With the help of other members of the group, Max was able to assemble the device. After the first tests, the filter worked successfully, and the water turned out to be safe to drink. What a plot twist, huh? Now, I've got a question for you. Which person would you sacrifice? But I would like to remind you that there is no correct answer. The spaceship Vanguard is traveling through space to a distant planet to start a new home for humans there. There's one captain on board and 7 crew members. Each of them has unique skills and jobs that can come in handy on a new planet. Suddenly, the ship experiences a decompression, and it becomes clear that the escape ship only has room for 6 people. The captain has to make a tough choice. He needs to decide who can be more useful in this new society, but there's also a moral side to this dilemma. The first crew member is James, a 42-year-old engineer. He is a natural leader and never loses his temper. He had to leave his wife and 2 sons back on Earth. James hopes they'll be able to join him on a new planet when the time is right. The next crew member is Stacy. She is 29, and biology is her main passion in life. She can start a garden from one seed, but doesn't accept criticism and always speaks up when she doesn't like something. This makes her relationships with other people complicated. She hasn't talked to her parents for years, and she often mentions plants are better than people. Geologist Tom is 36. His brain is like a map of natural resources. If you give him enough time, he can find oil and gas on any planet, even if everyone else says it's pointless to try. Tom can get stubborn at times, but that's because he always wants to reach his goals. He's a modest man who doesn't like to talk about himself. Maybe he has some secrets to hide. Allison is one of the oldest of the crew members. She is 48 and works as a doctor. Her survival skills and medical expertise are priceless. One of her best qualities is that she can handle any extreme situation perfectly fine. Yet she doesn't like the company of other people, and sometimes her comments reduce people to tears. Many years ago, she even lied to her sister to break her engagement. Next, we have a 25-year-old AI researcher, Matt. He believes the future belongs to technology, and since he's a master of tech, he'll rule the world. Matt loves intrigues and is very much into history. He's always the first to ignite conflicts and then watch them from a safe distance. It's impossible to make him say sorry or admit his fault. Helen is a 44-year-old psychologist. She always puts others first, and people often misuse it. She can heal souls. Isn't that important for stressful times of setting up a new society? Helen can't pass by a stray kitten or puppy in the street, and always donates to charity. One weird part is that she has no real friends among humans left on Earth, and sometimes she cries for hours for no reason. The final member of the crew is Richard. He is 23 years old and works as a sociologist. He is a perfectionist and likes to overanalyze things. At the same time, he has some unique charisma and can solve a conflict with a smile. He makes the best jokes and keeps the crew entertained on this long interstellar journey. There's just 1 hour left before complete decompression. The captain needs to decide whom to leave on the doomed spaceship and whom to take to the escape vessel. He decides to ask the crew which of them deserves to be left behind. James immediately calls Stacy's name. He says, "There's nothing a smart human can't master. As an engineer, I'm sure I can find a way to grow some plants with the right technology. Stacy thinks plants are better than people, so let her stay alone with the plants." Stacy hesitates, but finally says, "Richard is a nice guy, can always make a good joke, but is it really the most necessary skill on an uninhabited planet in space?" She also mentions that they should definitely take Helen with them, because she's the best person Stacy has ever met. Tom sounds like he's happy someone has to be left behind. He says, "Allison doesn't deserve to move on to a new planet. She's the oldest, and a robot trained by Matt can easily replace her as a doctor." Allison refused to name anyone. She suddenly gets emotional and says she'd rather stay behind herself because others deserve to live more than she does. Time is running out, but the captain isn't rushing it and keeps interviewing the crew like there's no danger. It looks suspicious because he should feel bad about leaving anyone behind. But it seems he's enjoying the process and his control over it. When the captain asks Matt whom they need to leave behind, Matt suddenly asks the captain about his experience. Where did you study? What does it take to become a spaceship captain? Everyone on board knows that Matt loves a good intrigue, so they just ignore it. The captain suddenly gets nervous and says they need to wrap things up. Matt starts typing something on his onboard computer. The captain asks Helen for her opinion, and she calls Stacy's name. Stacy looks completely shocked and says, "I thought Helen and I were best friends." Richard is the last one to speak. He volunteers to stay on the spaceship. "My contribution to starting a new life in space would be the smallest out of all the crew members. Please tell my family I love them a lot." It's a heartbreaking moment for the crew. Everyone approaches Richard to say their goodbyes and thank him. The only one not joining them is Matt. The captain rushes them and says that the choice is obvious. They can go without a sociologist. Plus, he volunteered anyway. Suddenly, Matt jumps up from his computer and asks everyone to move away from the captain. "Imposter! He's an imposter!" Matt had enough time to check everything the captain told him, and it was all lies. Then he found the photo of the captain who was supposed to go on that mission, and it was not the one standing in front of them. Now it seems like the choice is obvious. The crew knows nothing about the fake captain and why he decided to lie to them and put their lives at risk. The captain goes into defensive mode and says they all have some secrets. He yells, James, who claims to be a loving husband, fell in love with Stacy and made a move on her. They had a short affair, but then she rejected him, and that's why he called her name when asked who to eliminate. The captain knows it because he overheard James threatening Stacy to do something terrible to her if she tells anyone. James then says, Helen manipulated Stacy using her psychological skills. The psychologist made Stacy believe they were best friends, and in reality, she was just making use of her. Tom was involved with some illegal activities in the past, and many people lost their homes because of him. That's why he doesn't like to talk about his past. Tom says, when Allison broke her sister's engagement, she was actually engaged to Matt. Matt got on the spaceship, hoping to take revenge on her somehow. It looks like Richard is the only one without any secrets. The crew has seconds to make the choice. The captain explains, I wanted to be on that mission in memory of my father, who was a spaceship captain. His mission failed on the way to another planet, and he didn't have a chance to evacuate. I might not have the right education to control a spaceship, but I know a lot about it from my father. He stole the real captain's ID to become part of the mission. The crew members vote and decide to leave the captain behind because he had lied to them and risked their lives for his ambitions. They can't trust him anymore, and trust is crucially important in such critical situations. Do you think they made the right decision? Let us know in the comments below. Okay, sharpen your brain, and here we go. Look at these two girls who got in trouble in the savannah. Who is in bigger danger? The girl on the right is definitely in bigger trouble. There's a whole zeal of zebras running toward her. As for the girl on the left, she's in less of a trouble. Even though a huge elephant is speeding towards her, she can hide behind this large stone. Detective Liam was invited to investigate a strange case. James, an extravagant yet very selfish man, got robbed the other day. The case seemed hopeless, yet there was a small clue, a cryptic note left at the crime scene. S+1, D+1, C+1. The next day, 3 suspects were delivered to the police station. Their names were Ted, Sam, and Don. Once the detectives saw their names, it became obvious who the robber was. Can you guess who it was? It's Ted. All you need to do to decipher this code is to use the alphabet. At an elite party, waiters were serving drinks and snacks to all the guests. 2 aspiring actresses, Jill and Jane, had cocktails too. The next day, Jane showed up at an audition while Jill was in a hospital with doctors fighting for her life. Why? If you were attentive enough, you noticed that even though both girls had the same drinks, Jane didn't have any ice in hers, so the poison must have been in the ice. One day, Andrew and Alex decided to jump with a parachute for fun. However, for one of them, this might be their last day on Earth. Who's in danger? It's Alex. Look, he's got no parachute. It's just a backpack. However, if the guys notice it, Alex can still be saved. He needs to hold on to Andrew tightly to land safely. A group of friends, Louis, Jessica, and Albert, went hiking. Dusk was falling rapidly, and they decided to start a fire and have their late-night dinner. But once the flames lit the dark, it became obvious that one of them was a monster. Did you spot the intruder? It's surely Jessica. No human being can have those cat eyes. Three friends, Max, Mark, and Mick, went to a fancy new restaurant to try out some cool dishes a mysterious chef had cooked. Everyone loved the food, but oops, the next day, Max and Mark passed away in a hospital. The doctor said the two guys had severe food poisoning, and there was nothing they could do to save them. Now, look at the footage from the restaurant. Why did Mick survive? Apparently, poisoned tomatoes took the lives of the two friends. Look, Mick doesn't have this ingredient in his food. Now imagine waking up in a weird cage and seeing 3 doors in front of you. There's nothing horrendous waiting for you behind those doors, but the handles don't really inspire you. The thing is, the handle of the first door is covered with some nasty, probably toxic or radioactive ooze. The second handle is literally on fire. The third one has some super high voltage running through it. Which one should you choose? Hey, look, there are rubber gloves in the corner and you're wearing rubber boots. This might not help against ooze and fire, but it can definitely save you from high voltage. Pick the third door. Let's put your math skills to the test. Don't worry, it's easy peasy. When all birds landed one on each tree, one bird was left without a tree to sit on. But when 2 birds landed on one tree, there was one tree left vacant. How many trees were there? There were 4 birds and 3 trees. Now, my dear detective, we're going to test not your sharp eyes, but your logic. So, the poor have it, the rich need it, and if you eat it, you're going to surely pass away. What's that? It's nothing. The poor have nothing, the rich need nothing, and if you eat nothing, there's no chance you're going to survive for long. Jane and John Doe were an ordinary young couple. One day, they decided to go out of town and spend some time in nature, so they jumped into a car. While they were driving, they suddenly saw 4 people hitchhiking at a gas station, but most of them looked pretty suspicious. There was a man in tattered clothes, a woman wearing a cape, a man with a sullen face, and a teenage girl. Who should they give a ride to? Look, the woman in the cape doesn't cast a shadow. She must be a vampire. The man with the sullen face has a vampire bite on his neck, so he's now a vampire too. The teenage girl has suspicious claws, so she must be a werewolf. Thus, the man in tattered clothes is the only one who doesn't seem to be dangerous. 3 friends fell asleep under a tree in the countryside. While they were resting, a guy passing by painted mustaches on their faces. Once the men woke up, they started to laugh, but then, all of a sudden, they stopped. Why? At first, they saw the mustaches on their friends' faces and found it funny. But then, they realized their friends were laughing too. It meant that they had mustaches on their faces as well. On a rainy evening, Mary came home and found that someone had eaten her chocolate bar. Well, she asked her siblings who had done that. Jane said she had been working out in her room and she didn't even eat sweets. Ingrid said that she would never eat somebody else's chocolate. Jessica said that she had been outside watering plants in the garden. She'd just come home herself. Who lied? I'd say it was Jessica. It was raining outside, so she didn't really need to water the plants. One day, Detective Brightbrain was called to the airport, where an angry passenger demanded immediate compensation for stolen luggage. The angry passenger said that he had bought a plane ticket to the city of Chicago. He checked his 15-pound bag, but when he got it back, it was light as a feather. He claimed that there had been valuable things in the bag: a laptop, a ring, and a watch. He opened it right at the counter, and it was empty. While the man was waving his arms and shouting at the counter, a bag fell out of his pocket. The detective picked it up and immediately realized that the passenger was a liar. How did he guess? Well, let's just say the bag wasn't exactly filled with gold coins or anything. It was a bag of dry ice. The scandalous passenger had no valuables. He had just put several blocks of dry ice in the suitcase and deliberately left the zipper slightly open. During the long flight, the contents simply evaporated, leaving no traces. The swindler only needed to pretend to be indignant and demand compensation. You find yourself trapped in a medieval castle, far away from civilization. You can't jump out the window because it's too high above the ground. The only tree growing near the window doesn't look sturdy enough for you to use it to climb down. However, there are 3 doors, and one of them can lead you to freedom. But behind the first door, a fierce fire is raging. The second door holds back hundreds of venomous snakes. And behind the third door, there's a pitch-dark maze, and you can only imagine what surprises are waiting for you there. Which door should you choose? The third. You'll just need to break off a tree branch, turn it into a torch by lighting it in the first room, and go through the maze. It won't be dark anymore. 2 houses are on fire. One of them belongs to Jack, who is poor. Another one is a luxurious mansion that belongs to James. Which fire will the police extinguish first? Well, the police don't extinguish the fire. The firefighters do. Somebody call them, please. Luna here buys a plot of land with an unfinished house. The previous owner started construction 2 years ago, but he didn't finish it. Luna launches reconstruction, and soon she realizes that the house is haunted. Most ghosts are peaceful, but after a while, some mischievous ghost begins to ruin the house. Luna calls a famous ghostbuster, Phil. He interviews all the ghosts. The handyman ghost says he's been here since the very beginning, because he fell during construction. The ghost doctor says he moved here 6 years ago to hide from people and enjoy silence. And the third ghost used to live in a lake nearby, but then settled here. That was more than a year ago. So, who's lying? The doctor. He says he moved here 6 years ago. But the house itself was built only 2 years ago. Case solved. The local music school is haunted by the ghost of an opera diva. Phil arrives, explores the school, and questions 3 witnesses. The teacher heard the singing from the basement the other day. She went there to check, but it was empty. Nellie, the student, says that he saw the singing ghost in the hallway. And another student, Sam, saw her in the toilet. After hearing their stories, Phil is sure that the students pranked their teacher. Why? Take a closer look at the basement. It's full of dusty stuff. But this smart speaker isn't dusty, which means it was brought here recently. Only students claim to have actually seen the diva ghost. Oh, busted! Phil gets out of the castle and receives a new call. People complain about a ghost on the local pier. Phil arrives at the haunted spot and sees these 3 ladies. Who's the ghost? All 3 are ghosts. If they were living, dense people, their backs would be reflected in the water, not their faces. Phil asks the ghost ladies to leave. 2 of them agree, but the 3rd one escapes to the nearest forest. Phil follows her, but he loses track. Can you help him find her? She's hiding in this puddle. Phil returns home and checks his email. He receives 2 job offers from 2 different ghost-busting agencies. One of them is willing to pay him $1.8 million with an annual increase of $200,000. Another company is offering him a salary of $2 million with no raises. Which job will create more wealth in 3 years? Alright, let's do the math. If Phil picks the first agency, his salary will grow to $2 million in the second year. And in the third year, it will be $2.2 million. So he would earn $6 million by the end of the third year. If he picks the second agency, the math is more simple. 3 times 20. And again, he would earn $6 million by the end of the third year. However, if Phil picks the first agency, he would earn much more in the fourth year. So the choice is pretty obvious. Phil takes the first job, but first he decides to have a brief vacation in a famous haunted hotel. Unfortunately, someone robs the hotel during his stay. The police officer arrives in the morning and interrogates 3 guests. Phil says, "Sir, there was a heavy snowfall yesterday, so I was in my room all day watching TV." Peter says, "I was feeling sick yesterday. I wasn't in my senses. How could I commit the robbery?" And Bella says, "I returned to the hotel about 10 minutes ago. I don't know anything about the robbery." The officer figures out who committed the robbery right away. What about you? Bella is suspicious. She says she returned 10 minutes ago. But there are no footprints outside the hotel except for the officer's footprints. The next morning, Phil wakes up in a haunted basement. He's starving. Suddenly, a creepy man enters and brings him 4 plates of food. He says that Phil can only choose one dish. What should he choose? There's a bug in the first plate. The second one has an unpleasant smell. And the fourth one has nothing edible left. So Phil should take the third plate. After a while, the local ghost offers Phil a deal. If he solves a riddle, the ghost will help him escape. What phrase is represented by this rebus below? Can you help him out? It means, I am surrounded by enemies. Phil keeps on chasing the ghost and falls into a pit. He ends up getting trapped in a cave. Phil comes across 3 doors. Behind the first door, there's a maze. He will be lost for the rest of his life trying to get through. There's a deep, narrow chasm behind the second door. If Phil steps in, he'll fall into it. There's a zombie behind the third door. He loves feasting on humans. What should Phil do to escape? He should open the second door, then open the third one and quickly hide behind the first door. The zombie would assume that Phil entered the second door and start chasing him. The zombie will fall into the chasm and Phil will be free to go through the third door. Phil gets out of the trap and returns to the city. He's walking down the street. Suddenly, a pretty lady approaches him and asks to call the police. Someone stole her bag that had millions of dollars. Phil questions her about the thief. She says she was walking down the street when a guy came running from behind. He was wearing gloves and a face mask. He snatched the bag and ran away. She couldn't even see him. Phil asks, "How come you have scratches all over your face?" She replies that she tried to catch him and he scratched her cheek with a golden ring. It was on his right hand. Phil immediately understands that her story is fake. Why? The lady mentioned that the thief was wearing gloves, so he couldn't scratch her with a golden ring. Phil arrives at his new office. His colleagues give him a big welcome cake. He leaves it in the office fridge to drink tea together during lunch hours. He opens the fridge again and sees that someone bit his cake. Phil questions for suspects. Bella says she's been at a business meeting all morning. She hasn't even entered the kitchen today. Sam entered the kitchen only 2 times to use the coffee machine, but he didn't open the fridge. And Hannah says she's on a sugar-free diet. Lily says she was at the dentist all morning. Then she just got here. Who's lying? Sam. Take a look at the coffee machine. The sign says that it's broken. Therefore, his entire story is fake. Phil's client sends him 2 pictures of a creepy haunted house. Can you spot 7 differences between them? Here they are. Great job! The next day, Phil goes to check an abandoned castle. He gets trapped in a room with 3 doors through which he can escape, but each way hides some danger. There's a zombie behind the first door. Behind the second door, there's a hungry wolf, and a spooky ghost is waiting behind the third door. Which door should he choose? Ghosts tend to scare people, but they are not dangerous, so the third door is the safest option. Phil finds himself in a hallway. The door is closed and the lock appears to be quite complex. Luckily, Phil meets the local guardian ghost. He shows Phil 3 keys. One of them will certainly unlock the door. However, if Phil uses the wrong key, he'll stay trapped in this cursed castle forever. Can you help him choose the correct key? Only the second key fits perfectly. It was Emmanuel's dream to become the greatest detective in the world. But to do that, he needed to get accepted to the International Detective Academy. On their entrance exam, they wanted to test the visual perception skills of the potential students. So they gave students 3 images and asked them to find out what was wrong with them. The one who spotted the abnormality the fastest would get in. Here's the first image. Can you help Emmanuel out? The clock on the wall says it's 12 p.m., but the window view suggests it's sunset time. That doesn't add up, even if it's noon or midnight. Here's the second image. What's wrong here? The lady sitting at this table appears to be reading a book, but she's holding it upside down. And the last image. Spot the weird thing real quick. The picture on the wall is supposed to be a historical portrait, but the queen on it is holding a cell phone in her right hand. The county detective agency got a call from the sheriff's office. A criminal who had been in prison for a few months had escaped the jail. They were able to chase her until she blended in with the crowd at the venue where the annual Iron Lady competition was taking place. The president of the agency wanted to test the new recruit, Michelle, so he sent her to find the criminal without giving any information about what she looked like. Once Michelle arrived at the venue, 2 suspicious-looking ladies competing on the weightlifting stage caught her eye. Can you help Michelle identify which one is the criminal? It must be the lady on the right with the long hair and dark brown roots. Since she was in prison for a few months, she wouldn't be able to dye her hair there. Arya, a brave knight, was seeking the enchanted sword to save her kingdom from a cyclops. However, it was guarded by an ancient dragon who loved to play games. When Arya finally made it to the top of the Misty Mountains where the sword was, the dragon greeted her and said, "Only the one who answers my riddle is worthy of wielding the sword. Tell me, what is it that given one, you either have 2 or none?" The answer is a choice. Van Pulsing was a famous monster hunter. One day, he got a call from a couple who were the owners of an old mansion. They claimed that there were monsters occupying their home, hiding in plain sight and making them live in fear. They wanted Van Pulsing to free their house from them. He said they should continue their usual day, and he would observe where the monsters could be. Take a look at the bedroom. Can you spot the monster? Here, this is not a human hand. Where could the monster be hiding in this portrait room? Do you see Van Pulsing's shadow on the ground? It looks totally different from him. That must be some other shadow monster. Where's the monster in this reading room? Look at these candles here. The flames are eye-shaped. That must be a fire monster. The main ice sculpture at the Winter Festival was mysteriously melted hours before the grand opening. Angelica, the event planner, got suspicious of 3 participants: Derek, who was setting up food stalls, Olivia, in charge of decorations, and Sam, who was nowhere to be found earlier. Can you help her figure out who sabotaged the sculpture? See the small temperature arranging box directly below the sculpture area? It is password protected. And look at Olivia's palm. There are numbers written on it, which appear to be some sort of a password. It must be her who tampered with the system to melt the sculpture. Jared and Rita were going camping in the woods and had to choose a site to set up their tent. There were 3 differing camping areas available: Emerald Forest Camping, Firefly Mountain Campgrounds, and Starlight Lake Campsite. Can you help them decide which spot is the best? Look at this tree in Emerald Forest Camping. There's a bear hiding there. This option is definitely a dangerous one. Firefly Mountain Campgrounds is located next to a rocky hill. These loose stones and sharp rock edges pose a great risk. So they should pick the Starlight Lake campsite. A famous sculpture went missing from the art school gallery. Detective Joshua was informed that there were 3 students who were last seen near the gallery. Alexandra claimed that she was sketching in her notebook. Beckett said he was in a pottery class, and Caleb said he was reading in the library. Detective Joshua could immediately tell who had the missing statue. Can you? Check out Alexandra's sketchbook. Among her sketches, there's a detailed drawing of the missing sculpture, suggesting she took it to study and draw from it. The Museum of Art was doing a special exhibition of a very famous modern painting. There was a rumor that on the day of the gala, the artist who painted it was also going to be there. However, no one knew what they looked like because they were keeping their face a mystery to the public, and only the curators knew what they looked like. James was an art student and was a big fan of this painting. He had an invitation to the gala and was determined to meet the artist. Take a look at these 3 guests. Who do you think might be the artist of the painting behind them? We already know the name of the artist from their signature on the painting. It's Ali. Now, even though the second guy here is holding an exhibition brochure with the same signature, look at the tag he has on his jacket. It says he's the curator, so he already knows what the artist looked like, and he's just another fan. Now, check out the third lady. She's holding a red-colored pen, just like the color of the signature on the brochure. She must be the one who signed it, so she's the mysterious artist. It was snowing a lot that winter. Penny, the police officer, was on duty at the Commonwealth neighborhood. During one of her regular patrols, she noticed a suspicious-looking man who was carrying 2 bags full of stuff. When she asked him what he had in them, he said they were clothes for donation. Still, Officer Penny arrested him. Why? Look at the footprints on the snow. He left the house through the window after robbing it. If he lived there, he would rather use the door. Ellie went to the beach on a hot summer day. As she was placing her towel and umbrella on the sand, she noticed someone had dropped their diamond ring. She went to the beach guard and asked him to announce if anybody was missing their ring. After the announcement, 3 people, Jennifer, Shelley, and Marie, came and said the ring belonged to them. Can you help them figure out who is telling the truth? take a look at Marie's ring finger on her left hand. She has a tan line there. She must have been sunbathing when she dropped her diamond ring. Bernie was working in Los Angeles, and his girlfriend Deborah was working in Austin, Texas. She was living alone in a studio apartment. They loved each other very much and talked all the time. They were keeping their long-distance relationship alive by exchanging photos every day. But one day, after Bernie received 3 photos from Deborah, he immediately called her and said everything was over between them. Can you tell why? In the bathroom photo, there are 2 toothbrushes, even though she lives alone. In the living room photo, there is a man's shoe on the floor next to the door. And in the kitchen photo, on the planner on the fridge, Tuesday is circled. And inside the circle, it says, "Date night with James." Deborah is clearly cheating on Bernie.
Hey, the best detective on the bright side. Today, we need your help again. Are you ready for a bunch of almost unsolvable riddles? Let's get the ball rolling. Look at these girls. Who's in greater danger? The girl on the right, have you noticed that she's holding on to a snake? How about these ladies? Which of them is in greater danger? The one on the left. She's got a bleeding cut on her leg, and a shark is following her, attracted by the smell. A magician locked Timothy up in a room on top of a high tower with only one window and no doors whatsoever. Then the magician set the tower on fire and left. Timothy had to escape fast. He had 3 magic potions hidden in his pocket. One could give him incredible strength. The second could turn him into a vampire. And the third potion would let him summon any animal. Which potion should the man drink? Incredible strength won't save him in this dramatic situation. No animal will be able to help him escape. His only chance to survive is to become a vampire, turn into a bat, and fly away. Look at these people. They seem to be in grave danger, but one of them can actually escape pretty easily. Can you figure out who it is? It's the man on the left. First of all, he's protected from the hungry crocodiles by the bars of his cage. Plus, while being tied up, he took preventative measures that can now help him free himself. Look, when he was being tied, he spread his elbows, creating some slack in the ropes. It'll help him free himself easily. You're lost in the jungle. It's getting dark, and you need to get out of there as soon as possible. There are 4 roads leading to the east, west, north, and south, respectively. But dangers are lurking at the end of each road. The east road leads to a black hole that can swallow you in no time. The west road goes through a lake inhabited by whale sharks. If you opt for the north road, it will lead you to a giant pit in the ground that can't be crossed. And the south road is obstructed by a high mountain that is impossible to climb over. Which road should you pick to escape the dangers of the night jungle? Whale sharks are totally harmless to humans, so your safest option is crossing the lake. If you can swim, that is. On a nice summer morning, a traveler was walking through the jungle. Suddenly, she saw 3 paths in front of her. The first one ended in a dangerous people-swallowing swamp. The second path was vampires' favorite hunting ground. And the third path led to an active volcano spitting lava and burning everything around. Which path should the traveler choose? Do you remember that it was a sunny summer morning? Vampires are afraid of sunlight. It's unlikely the traveler will meet them during the day. So she should opt for the second path. You're stuck on a deserted island. Suddenly, you see a ship. It's pretty far from the shore. What can you use to communicate with it? A smartphone, a box of matches, a megaphone, or a telescope? A smartphone is pretty much useless on a deserted island. There's no coverage there. A telescope won't help you either. You'll see the ship, but you won't be able to communicate with it. The capacity of a megaphone is too small for your screams to reach the vessel. Your only chance to be noticed is to use those matchsticks to start a fire. Fire and smoke indicate an emergency, and people on the ship are more likely to notice such a signal. Mark was going home one evening when a large cat jumped out of the bushes right in front of him. The creature had large fangs and sharp claws. It was about to pounce on Mark. The guy only had his phone, a handkerchief, and a bottle of water. And still, he came out of this situation unscathed. How did he escape from the cat? Cats aren't huge fans of water, so Mark just poured some water on the feline and it scared the animal away. Look at these grannies. Which one is a real zombie? The one on the left, her eyes are eerily white, and she doesn't have ears. Creepy. Vincent got locked in a room with no windows and only one massive door. There's a panel with several buttons on the left and another one with a hint on it on the right. There's also a clock on the wall above the door. Which button should Vincent press to get out of the trap? The green triangle. The numbers on the panel, 3, 6, and 9, represent hours. If you connect them on the clock face, you'll get a triangle. Detective Marcus and another passerby became witnesses of a car accident. A man hit by a van was lying on the ground unconscious. Marcus rushed to the nearest cafe to call an ambulance. When he got back, the passerby told him the man had turned onto his back but hadn't come to his senses. After looking at the scene for a couple of seconds, the detective told the passerby to return everything he had taken from the injured man. Why did he say so? When they first saw the man, only one button was buttoned on his suit jacket. But now it's already 2 buttons. The passerby must have opened his jacket to look for the wallet and then buttoned it up incorrectly. Ralph, Willie, Amber, and Grace are in a museum room. Someone stole a priceless exhibit from this room several hours ago. Ralph, Willie, and Amber claim they have nothing to do with the crime. But the detective doesn't believe them. They all get arrested and taken to the police station. Only Grace, who hasn't answered the question, is free to go. Why? Grace is the detective. Look at this picture and try to figure out who is an alien in disguise. It's the guy in a yellow shirt. He's eating a banana, but he hasn't peeled it before biting on it. He probably sees this fruit for the first time. Detective Darson suspected one man of committing a crime. He decided to stake out his house. Not too far away, he spotted an artist setting up her easel. Apparently, she was going to draw the criminal's house. At one point, the detective had to drop by the police station. He asked the girl to call him if she saw someone entering or leaving the house. She agreed. When the detective came back in the evening, the artist told him she'd seen no one. The man immediately understood she was lying. How did he figure it out? When he was leaving, all the windows in the house were closed, but in the picture the girl drew, the windows are open. It means someone was inside while Mark was away. One wealthy businessman was famous for always wearing a black hat. But one day, he came to his office with a bunch of fruit on his head. His employees were shocked, but they didn't dare to question the man. The situation repeated the next day. On the third day, the businessman's secretary plucked up all his courage and asked what was going on. The man answered that he'd lost a bet. He hadn't fulfilled it yet, but he was going to do it that day. Then he told his secretary not to order lunch for him. What did the businessman have to do to fulfill the bet? When he made this bet, he said, "If I lose, I'll eat my hat." You've got a sack filled with coffee beans. You need to use this coffee to completely fill 2 other sacks of the same size. How can you do it? Put one empty sack into the other and fill it with coffee. Aubrey and her boyfriend Leo lost each other at a concert. He's in one of these toilet stalls. Can you help Aubrey find her partner? Leo is in the first stall. They have matching tattoos. Aubrey and Leo return to the concert. Suddenly, Aubrey notices that one of these musicians isn't real. Who? The guitarist is not real. His guitar has no strings.
Really?
After the concert, Aubrey goes backstage to say hello to the musicians. In the hallway, she meets 3 lady fans. One of them is a werewolf. Can you guess who? The first and the second ladies don't have any shadows, therefore, they're vampires. So only the third lady can be a werewolf.
Oh.
Aubrey enters the dressing room and finds the singer, Emma, unconscious on the floor. Aubrey calls the police and an ambulance. Officers question 3 suspects. The guitarist says, "I left the dressing room for 15 minutes to go to the toilet." The drummer says, "Emma asked me to bring her a burger with fries from the kitchen. When I returned, the police were already there." The piano player says, "I was taking selfies with my fans in the hallway." Who's lying? The drummer. His hands are empty, so he didn't bring any burgers.
Oh no.
After helping the police, Aubrey and Leo leave the concert hall to go home. 3 taxi drivers offer them a ride, but one of them is dangerous. Can you guess who? The second driver has a hyena in the back seat of his car. The next morning, Aubrey goes to the park for her daily workout. She spots two people chilling on two benches. One of them is a villain. Can you guess who? The lady is just having a picnic. But take a look at the guy. His magazine is upside down, so he's probably tracking someone. Busted!
Oh no.
Aubrey takes two pictures of the pond. Can you find 5 differences between them? Feel free to stop the video if you need more time. Are you ready to see the answers? Here they are.
Oh, yes.
Aubrey gets a message from her friend, Mary Jane. She fell from a bridge today,
Ah.
but she survived. How? Spider-Man saved her. She's Mary Jane, remember? Aubrey goes to visit Mary Jane at her condo, but the local security guard will only let Aubrey in if she cracks this riddle. I get sharper the more I'm used. What am I? Easy peasy. It's the brain. Mary Jane greets Aubrey and treats her to cupcakes and tea. There are 4 cupcakes in the box. One of them isn't safe. Can you guess which one? The first cupcake is a bit smashed, but that doesn't mean it's not edible. The second one looks fine. The fourth cupcake is a little burnt, but it can still be delicious. But the third cupcake has glass shards on top. Definitely not safe.
Oh, God.
Aubrey returns home and turns on the TV. Breaking news, everyone! A dangerous criminal has escaped from prison, and now he's walking around Aubrey's neighborhood.
What?
Suddenly, the doorbell rings. Aubrey checks her camera and sees 2 people standing on her porch. Both say that they're delivery guys, but one of them is the famous runaway criminal. Can you guess who? The guy on the left. He hides an axe in one of his trouser legs.
Oh, my God.
Aubrey calls the police, but the criminal realizes her intentions and escapes through the backyard. The police follow him and end up in a parking lot. The criminal is hiding in one of these 5 cars. Can you find him? These 4 cars seem empty, and they don't have any signs of a break-in. Meanwhile, someone's moving in the back seat of the 5th car. Busted! Aubrey is heading home from the police station and sees this scene. One of them is lying. Can you guess who? The vampire hunter is lying. This guy isn't a real vampire. He got scared and his cheeks turned red. Also, he has a shadow, just like humans. Aubrey keeps walking and comes across 3 neighbors arguing about one bike. Whose bike is it? The bike belongs to the red hat guy. The rest are wearing helmets, but his helmet is on the bike.
Oh.
The next day, Aubrey goes to the supermarket. She grabs some food and goes to the cashier to pay. Oh no, her card holder is missing. Aubrey interrogates 3 people standing nearby. Ethan says he was talking on the phone and he didn't steal anything. Mia says that she didn't touch Aubrey's stuff. Her hands were full with her own purchases. And the cashier says that she didn't notice any card holders. Aubrey knows for sure who's the thief. What about you? Take a look at Mia's purchases. She hid Aubrey's card holder inside the kale. Aubrey enters the local diner to have lunch. But this is not a regular boring restaurant. One of these two customers is a former mermaid. Can you guess who? Take a closer look at the second lady. She has scratches on her knees. That's because she's learned to walk just recently.
Oh.
Aubrey takes a seat and notices these two innocent-looking couples. One of the couples are visiting from another planet. Can you guess who? Take a look at the first table. The guy puts toothpicks in his pasta like salt or pepper. It's very unlikely that he's human. The next morning, Aubrey enters her office. Oh no, someone broke into her desk and stole her laptop. Yesterday, she locked it in her drawer. Aubrey calls the security guards and they question 4 suspects. The cleaning lady says, "I only entered Aubrey's room once to take out the trash early in the morning. I didn't touch her desk." The designer says, "Yesterday I left earlier than Aubrey, so I didn't see anything." The office manager says, "I was the first one to arrive today, but I spent all morning in my own room working on an urgent task." And the account manager says, "I was having a business meeting in the conference room all morning." Who's lying? The cleaning lady. Take a look at Aubrey's bin. She didn't take out the trash, so her story is fake. Aubrey and Leo go for a walk on the beach. But something is wrong here. Can you guess what? No waves. Aubrey and Leo keep on walking and get lost in a huge maze.
Oh my god.
Can you help them escape?
Oh no.
Here's the only way out. Suddenly, the guys see a curious animal. It has feet but no legs. Which animal is it? It's a snail. Snail foot is a muscle that allows it to move. Aubrey and Leo decide to explore the local haunted house. They enter a creepy hallway and the door slams shut. The guys wander around and find another door with a combination lock. They have to figure out the 5-digit code to open it. Can you help the guys figure out the code? Take a look at these fancy runes on the wall. It's a hint. These are just mirror digits. The code is 13947.
Yes!
The guys open the door. They faint because the next room is filled with sleeping gas. After a while, they wake up in a basement and see a drawing of the floor. Suddenly, a creepy voice says, "2 letters are missing here. Guess which ones, and I'll set you free. If you don't, you'll stay here forever." Can you help the guys out? The missing letters are N and N. The guys open the next door and see a bunch of butterflies flying in the air. Can you count the exact number of green butterflies? Seven.
Yeah!
Now let's see if you can count the number of pink butterflies. The correct answer is 9.
Oh my god.
Finally, the guys get out of the haunted house. They take 2 pictures for their social media. Can you find 5 differences between them? Ready to see the differences? Here they are. The haunted house has a garden maze. Can you help the guys get out? They should definitely choose the first route. Mason is moving to a new town. On the way, he makes a stop at the local gas station. He wants to pay for gas and snacks, but his red leather wallet is missing. Mason interrogates 3 people standing nearby. Ashley says that she didn't touch Mason's stuff. Both of her hands were full of sandwiches. Lily says she was taking selfies for her social media. And the cashier, Xavier, said that he didn't notice any red wallets. Mason knows for sure who's the thief. What about you? Take a look at Ashley's sandwiches. She hid Mason's wallet between 2 pieces of bread. Mason exposes the thief and continues on his journey. He gets hungry and goes to a diner. But immediately, Mason feels something off about this place. Something's completely wrong with one of these 3 waiters. Which one? The lady on the left has wolf teeth, and she doesn't wear any badge on her uniform, so it makes sense to stay away from her. Mason arrives at the town late at night. He parks his car and looks around. Suddenly, Mason notices an unconscious lady on the ground. He calls the police and an ambulance. They arrive very quickly. Meanwhile, the lady comes to her senses, but she finds out that all her money is missing. The police have 3 suspects, Mason and 2 other pedestrians, Noah and Mike. Who's the thief? Take a look at the ground. There are 2 types of footsteps leading to the place where the lady is lying. One of them belongs to her, and the other one was left by Mason. There are 2 parallel straight lines left by a wheelchair. So the thief must be Mike. The next day, Mason meets his neighbors.
Hello.
It's an elderly couple, Ralph and Glenda. They have just finished building a fancy new house. The house looks beautiful, and they invite their 3 grandchildren over to have a look at their work. It takes 1 day for one guy and 2 girls to break several windows, knock down the fence, remove the decorations, and ruin the roof. But the retired couple doesn't mind. They just smile looking at the teenagers. Can you figure out why? The grandparents made a gingerbread house and invited their grandchildren to enjoy it. Dinner time. Mason enters a local restaurant. 2 tables are occupied, but this is not a regular boring restaurant. One of these families belongs to the mafia. Can you guess which one? Take a closer look at the second family. The daughter holds a teddy bear that's stuffed with dollars. Mason decides to go to another place instead. He takes a look at these 2 tables and spots the mafia family right away. What about you? It's the first family. The father has a red laser dot at the level of his heart. A sniper is aiming at him. Mason switches restaurants again. 2 tables are occupied by innocent-looking families. Yet again, one of these groups belongs to the mafia. Can you guess which one? Take a look at the second table. The father is hiding a gold bar in his menu.
Oh.
The next morning, Mason goes to check out the local pool. Can you spot an undercover cop among these people? This guy has a suspicious earphone in his ear. Why would he need it while swimming? Mason is terrible at packing. Today, he's going camping in the forest. Can you help him pack his stuff? Take a look at his bag and spot all the useless items. Oh, look! He has an electric hairdryer, but there's no electricity in the forest, so he can definitely leave it at home. Mason and his friend Bennett go hiking in the local forest. On the way, they meet two ladies, Anna and Alice. They hang out together, and both guys fall in love with Anna. They want to take her on a date. So the guys secretly ask Alice which of them Anna likes more. Alice doesn't want to share her bestie's secrets, but she gives the guys a hint. Anna loves pizza, but she can't stand burgers. She likes to go to the pool, but she never goes to the gym. Her favorite animal is the llama, but she's afraid of zebras. Which one of these guys does Anna like? Alice wanted to give the guys a clue, so we have to look for some patterns in her words. All the things Anna likes have double letters. Bennett has 2 double letters in his name, so he must be Anna's crush. The guys keep on hiking. Suddenly, they see a beautiful large apple tree growing on a cliff. If a powerful wind blows towards the land, where will the apples fall? In any case, they'll fall down. Alice needs to leave for the city, but Mason, Bennett, and Anna decide to spend the night in the wild. The next day, they wake up in a terrible trap. They're hanging upside down in the air with their legs tied. There's a bunch of venomous snakes on the ground under Mason. There's fire and hot coals under Anna, and dangerous scorpions are crawling under Bennett. How can the guys survive? Can you see that black cloud with lightning? It's gonna start raining soon. The rainwater will put out the fire under Anna. This lady has a knife, so she can cut the rope and then help the others.
Yes!
The guys escape, but they get lost in the forest. It gets dark. They're wandering around and come across a creepy cabin. It belongs to a witch. She says the guys must solve a riddle if they want to escape from her land. The witch writes a number. There are 2 special things about it. What are they? First, this number contains all existing digits. Second, they're put in alphabetical order.
Oh.
Mason and his friends return to the town. Meanwhile, someone robbed the local museum and stole the most valuable painting.
Oh no.
A detective investigates the crime scene and finds the thief right away. However, when asked to give it back, the criminal provides the police with 3 copies of the same painting. He refuses to tell which one is original. Can you find the real masterpiece? Each painting has a different frame, but only one of them is perfectly similar to the other frames hanging in the museum. And since this museum uses the same style of frames, this painting should be the original. Mason gets a new job in a small company. Only 4 people work with him. One day, Mason comes to the office and he doesn't find his favorite slippers. Mason always puts them on while working. He searches everywhere and finally spots them on the roof of the building. Mason is furious. He questions his coworkers. Bill says, "I don't even know where you keep your slippers." Phil says, "I'm terrified of heights. I have never climbed up there." Mara says, "I'm wearing high heels today. I can hardly walk in them." And Ella says, I respect you too much to prank you, sir. One of them is lying. Who? It's Phil. He said he was afraid of heights, but take a look at the photo on his table. He's skydiving with a parachute. Liar. After work, Mason returns to his condo. He enters the elevator with 3 people. One of them is a police officer working undercover. Can you guess who? Take a look at this old lady's outfit. She has a tiny hidden video camera in her hat. Mason enters his apartment. Oh no! Someone broke the lock and stole his precious golden cup. Mason calls the police and they question 3 neighbors. George was painting his living room all day. He listened to loud music so he couldn't hear anything. Bella was walking with her boyfriend all day long. They've just returned home. And Aaron was sick, so he only went out once that day to take out his trash. He heard weird noises from Mason's apartment. Who's lying? George. His living room doesn't look freshly painted. Cora gets a new job and moves into a luxury apartment in Manhattan. Her condo has 13 floors. 5 people are living on the ground floor, and each floor has 2 more people on it compared to the previous one. Which floor calls the elevator the most? Any person who lives on a floor other than the ground floor would have to call the elevator to reach their respective floors. So, the ground floor should call the elevator way more frequently than the other floors.
Oh.
Cora meets her neighbor, Mason. He has 4 daughters, Hannah, Elle, Eve, and Anna. What pattern did he use to name them? His daughters have palindromic names. You can read them from left to right and from right to left, but they'll remain the same.
Oh.
Cora takes the elevator to the 13th floor where she lives. The elevator takes her to the desired floor. She comes out and freaks out right away. Why? Take a look at the mirror. It didn't reflect the number 13 correctly.
Oh God.
4 movers show up to help Cora with her boxes, but one of them is an imposter.
Hello.
Can you guess who? The third guy carries the only box that doesn't have Cora's name on it. Also, one of his arms is in a cast. He hid it under his gloves and sleeves, but Cora cannot be tricked so easily. The next day, Cora receives 4 welcome baskets from her neighbors. One of them isn't safe. Can you guess which one? The second basket looks delicious, but take a closer look. There are bugs instead of chocolate in these cookies. Yuck! Cora wants to hire a cleaner to take care of her apartment. She interviews 3 people. Sandra says she has 20 years of experience in this field. Harry is a student who needs extra money to pay his bills and buy food. And Bianca has recently moved from her parents' farm. She needs a job as soon as possible. Who's lying? Harry. Take a closer look. He's too transparent to be a real human. Ghosts don't need to pay bills and buy food. Liar.
Oh no.
There's a swimming pool on the roof of Cora's condo. She goes there and meets 3 neighbors in the shower. One of them is not from this planet. Can you guess who? The third lady is a visitor from outer space. She has 7 toes instead of 5. Also, she lacks a belly button. And it seems like the shower steam goes through her body. Cora comes back home and finds out that someone stole one of her expensive paintings and replaced it with a cheap copy.
What?
How did she know? The third painting has a slightly thinner frame than the others. That's because it's a fake. Cora decides to question her neighbors. She knocks on 2 doors just next to hers. Ashley and Megan live in separate apartments just next to Cora. These 2 ladies have partners, but one of them dates 3 people at once. Can you guess who? Ashley has 3 different cakes in her fridge, so she probably had 3 different guests recently. Cora wants to find the thief who stole her painting, so she calls the police. Officers examine the crime scene and arrest 3 suspects right away. Can you tell who's guilty by just looking at this picture? The thief left footprints of sneakers on the carpet next to the paintings. Only the first suspect has the matching shoes and size.
Ah.
The next morning, Cora goes hiking in the woods, and eventually she gets lost. There are 3 routes that she can take. One has animal footprints, the second one has human footprints, and the third route is along the river. Which path is the most reliable? Cora should choose the third route. Animals might be dangerous and people are not reliable, but the river will lead her to the city or a bigger body of water with a beach. In the evening, Cora goes to the local concert hall. One of these guys is a real magician. Can you guess who? The first guy is hiding a card under his sleeve. The second one makes his card levitate with the help of teeny tiny strings. But the third magician's hat levitates on its own.
Oh.
So he's the real one. Cora is watching an opera set in ancient Egypt, so the actors are dressed in appropriate costumes. After the show, Cora goes backstage to meet them. But one of these people is not an actor.
Oh.
This person is a time traveler from the past. Can you spot the imposter? All 4 people are dressed in ancient Egyptian costumes, so we should use the method of elimination. The first guy is using a smartphone, so he's probably an actor. The second lady has a modern manicure, so let's exclude her too. The fourth lady has a sports car tattoo on her leg, so she must be from this century as well. Therefore, the third guy is a time traveler.
Ah.
Cora arrives at the condo after the opera late at night. She enters the empty lobby and suddenly hears weird sounds from the basement. Cora goes there to check and finds herself in a secret, spooky dungeon. She finds a door with a combination lock which requires a 4-letter password. There is a mirror next to the door. Someone wrote the word "live" on its surface. Cora tries to enter this word, but it doesn't work. Can you help her crack the code? The mirror is part of the clue. Cora should reflect this word, and the password is evil. Finally, Cora opens the door. She sees a secret meeting taking place in a creepy hallway. All participants are dressed in robes and masks. They catch Cora and offer her a deal. If she manages to crack their riddles, she'll become part of the club. But if not, she'll remain locked in the dungeon forever.
Ah.
Here's the riddle. My neighbor makes mistakes. I get rid of them. Who am I? Can you help Cora out? I'm an eraser. Cora nails it, and now she's invited to go into the Hall of Mirrors alone. Cora sees a bunch of fun reflections of herself in the weird mirrors, but suddenly she freaks out and screams. Why is that? One of the reflections doesn't belong to Cora, so she's not alone in this room. Cora enters the next room and gets trapped in a spooky, abandoned public shower. She needs to choose one of these 3 doors to get out. There's a bunch of hungry rats behind the first door. There's an unknown glowing substance behind the second door. It may or may not be toxic. And there's a firewall behind the third door. Which way is more or less safe? Cora should choose the third door. Look around. She's in the shower, remember? She can use a bucket and water to put out the fire. Now Cora needs to crack this twisted circle maze to find the way out. Can you help her? Here's the correct route. Cora enters the next room and finds herself in a huge, chic dining room. There are 3 figures in robes and masks staring at her, but one of them is just a statue. Can you guess who? The first figure is breathing deeply. The second is blinking. You can see it through the mask. So the third figure must be the statue.
Oh god.
People in masks give Cora 3 envelopes. She can choose one of them and take what's inside as a gift. One of them contains a $100 million diamond necklace. Another one, a pair of wool socks. And the third one, $10,000 in cash. Each envelope is signed. The first one says, "Necklace isn't here." The second one says, "Necklace is here." And the third one says, "Necklace might be here." Can you help Cora make the right choice? She should ignore the writings and simply weigh the envelopes. The desired one should be much heavier than the others.
Oh yes.
Cora gets her necklace. The secret club members take off their robes and masks and turn on the lights. Cora recognizes her neighbors. That was just a welcoming prank. But still, something is odd here. Can you guess what? The lamp levitates.
Oh my god.
Martin wakes up locked in a basement. The man has no idea how he got there. Probably through a hatch in the ceiling. There are 3 doors leading out of the room. Behind the first one, there's a deep pit with metal spikes at the bottom. The second door leads to a lake with hungry piranhas. And behind the third door, there are crocodiles. But the worst thing is that the room is starting to fill with water. You need to help Martin, and fast. So write in the comments what the poor guy should do to save his life. Martin should open the first door. The pit will begin to fill up with water, and eventually the guy will be able to swim over the spikes. We've got one more person, Elisa, trapped in a room that's being filled with water, coming from a tap in the wall. There are no windows in the room, and the door is blocked. Elisa only has a mop and a big bucket. If you know how to save her life, comment below. It's actually not so dangerous. Elisa just needs to turn off the tap. Nick was sailing around the world on his yacht when he got caught in a terrible storm. At one point, he hit his head against the mast and lost consciousness. When he came round, he found himself on the beach, surrounded by unfriendly-looking locals who definitely didn't like foreigners. They offered Nick 3 options: sending him to a cave filled with tarantulas, throwing him into a pit filled with yellow scorpions, or taking him to meet several hungry lions. If you don't write in the comments which option the guy should choose, it might end badly for him. Nick should opt for the tarantulas, since they're mostly harmless to people. Look at this volcano. It's about to erupt. Unfortunately, Lauren has just 1 seat in her sports car, but there are 3 people who want to get as far away from the volcano as possible. Who should the girl save? A young, handsome guy? A rich woman? Or a granny? While the guy and the woman are young and can move fast, capable of running away, the elderly lady won't make it. Lauren should give her a lift. But if you disagree, write your opinion in the comments. Look at these teachers. One of them is a vampire. You need to react fast to save their students from untimely demise. The teacher on the left has some tan lines, but vampires are afraid of sunlight. The one on the right has a cast on her leg. He's unlikely to be a vampire. But the one in the middle has all her body covered. She's even wearing gloves. She must be the vampire we're looking for, since she's afraid of sun rays touching her skin. Melanie invited her colleague Maria for dinner. Maria was surprised, since she thought Melanie didn't like her. But Melanie prepared a very nice meal. She cut the fish in half, and each of the women ate their portions. Sometime later, Maria paled and lost consciousness. She was taken to a hospital. It was bad food poisoning. Several days later, police arrested Melanie for trying to poison Maria. Write in the comments how she managed to do it. After all, the women ate the same dishes. The poison was on one side of the knife Melanie used to cut the fish. This way, only the piece of tuna she gave Maria was poisoned. Look at this picture very attentively. One of these people has just stolen a penguin. If you can figure out who the thief is, write "got it" in the comments. The first man has obviously come to feed the penguins. The lady is really pregnant. As for the young guy, he has a heavy backpack, which is leaking. The penguin must be inside. Look at these people. One of the women isn't a real wife. If you can answer correctly in the comments which one it is, you're a true detective. Both of these women have rings, but the blonde lady knows the exact size of her husband's briefcase, so the lunch she's prepared will definitely fit in. As for the second woman, she must be his sister. They have identical birthmarks. 4 friends went out for lunch. They ate the same food, but 2 of them got food poisoning. Why are the rest fine? Switch on that inner detective of yours and write your answer in the comments below. Those 2 who were fine after the meal didn't drink coffee. The drinks were poisoned, not the food. These ladies went to enjoy some ice cream together, but after that, one of them got sick. Can you tell us why? The woman who later got sick had berries on top of her ice cream. The other ladies ate ice cream with cinnamon. Michelle was about to leave her office when she received a message from the building security that a dangerous criminal had sneaked inside. The woman needed to get out of there as soon as possible. She was running towards the elevators when both of them simultaneously opened their doors. Inside, there were suspicious-looking guys. Which elevator would you opt for? Share in the comments. Michelle decided to run to the second elevator. The criminal had just entered the building, so he wouldn't be coming from upstairs. Criminals kidnapped 3 bank workers to get secret financial information from them. The bankers were locked in a basement with only one window high above the floor. The men decided that at least one of them had to escape and warn the police. The men stood on each other's shoulders, but the one on top still couldn't reach the window. Do you have a solution to this problem you could share with us? The tallest of the bankers should climb on top. This man most likely has the longest arms, so he will be able to manage to reach the window. Luke took part in a scientific experiment, but something went wrong, and he ended up in a place where there was nothing but 3 portals. One of them led to a polar desert in Antarctica. The second one opened into a volcanic crater filled with molten lava. And behind the third portal, there was the dinosaur age with huge diplodocuses roaming around. Which portal would you jump through? Tell us in the comments. Luke would instantly freeze in a polar desert. Molten lava isn't even an option. But diplodocuses are totally harmless to people. They only eat plants. Once, a prison guard accidentally overheard very disturbing rumors. One of the most dangerous criminals was planning a prison break. The guard watched the footage from the surveillance cameras and discovered that 2 women had been behaving suspiciously. One of them was a former bodybuilder